Hey guys, I'm at Myron's Extreme Machines in Fullerton, California, home of the Electric Bicycle Center, and you can see all these great bikes hanging out. He's also got a really pretty extensive shop in the back where he does repairs and stuff. One of the things we were talking about today is how do you troubleshoot an electric bike? Not everyone lives near a great shop that can do it for you, and sometimes you just want to try to see if maybe it's something you can fix yourself. So, I don't know, take it away, Sam. What do you do if your bike's not working?
Well, you know, it's a process of elimination, basically, and you start at one end and you work your way back. It's not that difficult, you know. You check a few things, a customer calls me up, and a lot of times they can figure it out on their own if they just know where to look and where to start from. The first thing, my bike doesn't work, what do I do? I'm not sure. I had someone come in this morning actually with this very problem. The first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that the battery is got enough voltage in it, and you start with your battery. Make sure that the bike is powering up, and either your little LEDs will be lit up or your display panel will be lit up. If you are powering up your bike and you're not getting anything up here, you can start right at the battery. It's going to be the battery or getting the power up to that point.
And sometimes there is like a connector from the battery up to the...
Or it maybe just didn't charge, or maybe you got a blown fuse in the battery itself.
Interesting. Yes, some of these bikes have replaceable fuses in the batteries, and other times they don't all have that little LED power indicator. So what, you use like a voltmeter and you...
So there's two ways to check the voltage on a bike. And if you have a voltmeter, you can take the battery out and you can actually hook it up. There'll be a positive and negative here, and you can get a reading right off here. Also, you can take the prongs sometimes and stick your voltmeter right into this area here to get a reading on the battery as well.
Okay.
And if it's a 48 volt battery, for instance, and you got 17 volts in the battery, bingo, you just located your problem.
Right.
But if you find that, you know, you've got a surface charge of 52 volts in your 48 volt battery, it's fully charged, and now we have to move on to the next step.
Thank you for the examples on the exact, the measurements.
And next might be, I've seen prongs, not in this case with this style of battery, but sometimes the prongs aren't lining up right, or they're loose. There's a connection where the female end looks like this and the prong goes in like this. So you've got a good positive connection. Well, if one of those gets bent and this isn't making a contact here to here, it's like that, no power going up to your, it's no circuit at all, basically. You're not getting any power through there. So that's another area you can look for. Beyond that, let's say that you do have the power coming up. We've got the LCDs or the displays lit up, but my bike's not working. Everything's lighting up. I've got power up to here. It's not going. What do I do? Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Call the electric bike shop up. What's the next step? A very common problem that we just had today was somebody had dropped their bike and the lever was slightly bent, holding the lever back a little bit. And you're always mentioning in all your videos the brake inhibitor.
Yeah, that's
what's
the
term
wire.
you use? I can't remember what you call them.
Oh, it's like a motor inhibitor.
Your motor inhibitor. That's the famous line that Cord always
Cut-off
uses.
switch.
The cutoff switch. Well, it's a cutoff switch, and it's cutting off the power. And if this is pulled back, the bike's not going to power up. You got to make sure the handles. And sometimes, look underneath your Court. You see how that's glued on there?
Yeah.
Sometimes these come unglued or get bent or twisted, and it doesn't make that contact. It doesn't make that connection, and that is going to cause that stoppage of the bike from running. But everything's lit up. I don't know why my bike doesn't run. Another thing you can do is you can trace those wires down and actually disconnect. 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a controller, and those wires are going to come into the controller. You can completely disconnect your brake inhibitors and then eliminate them. A lot of times, all you need is battery going to the controller, wires going back to the motor, and then a wire going up to your throttle. Everything else, it's something to do with either your cadence sensor, your brake inhibitors.
And while we're on the throttle, by the way, I had a bike once that I was using pretty regularly with the throttle. It did have pedal assist, but I was just, going home, and it was one of my first e-bikes, and I would always let go of it like that. And I'm sorry to do that. That's not good for your twist throttle, right? It's like it's banging it around, and eventually it broke. Like everything was lighting up like I thought, and I was like, why isn't it working? My throttle didn't work.
Sometimes if you look, like right here where this line is and where that line's up there, if this goes beyond that point, then it's bad. It's got to come back and stop. If it feels a little loose in there, then that's a it's going to cause problems. You're
A
going
lot
to
of times it's replaceable though too.
Absolutely, and sometimes you might have like a defective throttle or a defective pedal assist mode. One system won't work, but the other system will work.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's another thing. You can still get home on your pedal assist, but maybe your throttle's bad, or vice versa.
And this one, again, this is the iZip E3 Dash. It's a pretty advanced bike that has sort of a torque sensor down here in the bottom bracket, whereas more basic bikes, they might have like a little pedelec disc with a ring of magnets. I'm always pointing it out in my reviews. Yeah, you can see those magnets. So in this case, those magnets just pass a little sensor, and it might be easier to kind of troubleshoot that sensor with something that's a little more advanced, like the Dash. You know, you might need the help of the shop.
Yeah, we've had problems where a torque sensor is out of adjustment, or it's not working properly, or the bike will be pulsating, and those are direct issues with TMM. You've got to replace, or you've got to reconnect or readjust in some instances.
It's interesting you say that, Sam. You mentioned specifically the TMM4 torque sensor. That's this metal plate right here. We're looking at an easy motion electric bike. And, you know, there's actually like movement going on when you push on those crank arms and pull that chain, and that's what's signaling to the bike to go in pedal assist mode. But it's fairly sensitive. I mean, if you over tighten that back wheel, or, you know, it's
common issue, not a common issue, but something to look for if you have that particular style bike.
Yeah.
And in that case, I would just take it into the shop and have them check it out and replace. In most cases, it's just an R&R, remove and replace it.
Right. And this is back to proper assembly and having a warranty and all that. That's why I'm always, you know, kind of giving extra credit to purpose-built e-bikes and electric bike shops, because this is a fairly complex system, and there are different applications. You know, you were saying common problem. It's like no hate towards the torque sensors on the Easy Motion. I like these bikes, and it gives you a fluid sense of power. It's not just an on-off switch like these cadence sensors. But sometimes that's nice if you don't want to overexert yourself. Just a cruiser bike, a lot of times they have a cadence sensor.
Let me show you another issue I've seen with the disc with the magnets on it.
Okay.
That has to be in proximity to the actual sensor.
Yeah.
And that's a magnet. And if the magnet's too far away, and sometimes those discs will walk out on that bottom bracket.
Yeah.
And if it's got too much of a gap on it, you've lost your pedal assist. And oh my gosh, what do I do? Really easy fix. Just get down there with a screwdriver, a flat, even your fingers sometimes, and push the disc closer over. And sometimes the disc will be rolling around out of balance.
Yeah.
You got to line it back up and bring it closer to the sensor. The sensor is going to look like this, and the disc is going to look like this with the magnets going past.
Let me just show it like as close as I can get. Right down there. See the disc with the magnets, and then there's the sensor there with that little red like LED thing on it. That's what he's talking about. And these ones are pretty advanced. They're 12 magnet sensors, so they're just even more responsive.
Yeah, another thing that we've noticed sometimes is where your battery comes in and connects into the controller, they'll have a bullet connection, or they'll have a male-female connection of some type. Sometimes one wire is just loose, and there's your problem. It's very obvious, a visual. If you pull your controller out and look at it, look for any disconnected wires. If you got a disconnected wire, hopefully it's color-coded, and plug it back in, and there you go. You fixed your electric bike, and down the road you go. That's
good. That's really good. We're getting back into maintenance, but also making sure that your bottom bracket's tight and everything, because if these parts are loose, or it was assembled improperly, you know, you can end up sort of shearing wires or kind of pulling them and end up with real problems, stuff that is a little more complicated to fix, more time consuming.
Rear tire, two flat tires, make sure you put a lot of times the rear axle will have a hollow axle, and it'll have a slight cutout on it. Make sure to take a picture maybe before you start, so that you don't forget, how do I put it back on and what direction was it at? You put it in upside down 180 degrees, the wires are being pinched, and if it pinches and cuts the wires right at the axle, you're done.
Or you can ride backwards. I did the Dillinger kit review here, and I installed the kit backwards, and I floored it, and we went backwards. It was ridiculous. So it happens to the best of us, right?
Was I here for that one?
I don't know.
I missed that one.
There might have been some extra help, but what you're talking about is real clear on this bike here. We've got an older Pedigo, and you can see that the cable's coming out of that axle and kind of facing down. Someone was telling me that they purposely angle it down so that water doesn't run in from the cables, that it kind of drips out. These bikes, you know, it works pretty well, but as you were saying, if the bike tips, you can kind of bend those wires. Easy Motion has moved to a newer, more advanced version of how their wires come out. They put it on the left-hand side on their newer bikes. Where is it?
This right here. I'll point it out with my finger.
Oh, so this has got to be a 2014 because see the wires coming out farther on the right, and it's also like crammed with all the other derailleur stuff. On the newer Easy Motion bikes,
down here, here's a 2015.
This is 2015. Okay, perfect. See, on this one, it's not only does it have like tool-free levers to take it off, but now the motor cable is coming out on the left side, and see how tucked in it is right there, right next to the disc brake, so that if this bike tips to the left or the right, it's a lot less likely that your drivetrain is going to get messed up or that your cable is going to get bent. So little things like that, these companies are spending a ton of time and energy.
Yeah, as time goes by, it gets more refined and a little bit better. Innovation goes into it. Every year we see advancements and changes, and that's why it's always exciting for us to go to Interbike and see what the latest stuff is going to be.
Yeah, this is great. Well, we probably talk all day about this stuff. Do you have any other thoughts on how to troubleshoot an e-bike?
Last resort is call a shop up, that has knowledge on it.
And the tools, because look at this, you got like a mechanical or an electric park tool rack that lifts this up no problem. A lot of these bikes are like 50 plus pounds, and if you're a skinny guy like me, you're like, trying to fix it.
It just makes it a little bit easier to be able to drop or lift the bike up.
Yeah, look at that.
And a lot of times when you're working at home and you've got your park tool stand that you bought a cheaper one, the first thing you want to do is remove the battery from the bike when you're working on it.
To lighten
Just
it
like
up.
when you're transporting the bike, I recommend remove the battery as well, because that can be as much as 9-10 pounds of weight in some instances. In most cases, it's a 6 to 7 pound battery you're removing, but that's 6-7 pounds less that the car rack or the stand has to lift.
That's huge. Thank you for mentioning that, because yeah, a lot of car racks, if you've got one that sort of it looks like a big, I don't know, like a crane or something, and you put your bike like at the top of it, it hangs down, and if you can reduce the weight of that bike, that's great. That's to definitely want to do that, because you've already got probably an overbuilt frame, and then 6 to 10
Call
pound
your
hub motor.
local electric bike shop. Call your local bicycle shop. I think the more people that have electric bikes that are calling regular bike shops, they're going to get clued in like, hey, there's something to these electric bikes. More and more people are riding them. Maybe we got to get on the bandwagon and start carrying them ourselves.
Yeah.
We as in an industry have to get more of these, a larger infrastructure of bike shops working on and selling electric bikes.
Well, and be patient and sensitive with your local bike shop, because we were talking about this earlier. Someone will get an e-bike like this Dash. Maybe they have some sort of a flat tire, and they take it to their local shop and say, hey, tune it up or make my brakes stop squeaking. And the local bike shop might be the first time they've seen an electric bike, and they go for it, and it can take a lot of extra time, and they want to be sensitive, because if they mess something up, this could be very expensive to fix. Like, the cable was upside down, like I did the other day, or the cable gets messed up.
Yeah,
it
does happen too, and it's an unfortunate situation, because their first experience with an electric bike might end up being with the cable being broken coming out of the axle, and then the customer is saying, "Are you liable for that? I don't want to have to spend the $400 or $500 to fix it."
Yeah.
And then that bike shop will say, "You know what? We never want to work on an electric bike again because of that bad experience." So it's a learning curve, and we're all going through it, and we wish the best for everybody out there in all parts of the industry. So other things I check for when the bike is all lit up. I know my brake inhibitors aren't on. I've got power up to here. What left is there to check out on your electric bike? And I have literally lifted bikes from the floor up onto my rack, and I grabbed in a very sensitive area right here. And this is the connection between the motor and I call the pony wire that goes into where the controller is. And if this has come slightly disconnected at just enough of a movement, it'll actually, everything on the system is working up to this point, but without the motor hooked up, the bike's not going to go.
I've seen that a lot on folding electric bikes too, because you'll like fold it to get it in your car, and you'll take it out and you'll be like, ta-da, and then it won't start, and you're like, what's going on?
Check that connection. Every bike has some type of a connection somewhere between the motor and going up to where the controller is. This wire is usually going straight up to the controller.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah. And then once in a while you get a mystery problem that you can't figure out. You've checked everything. I've got a good battery. My brake inhibitors are good. Everything's checking out. The motor's hooked up. the lights are on, why doesn't my bike work? And sometimes I've had a bad wire in the pony wire going between here. Now that is very rare,
Yeah.
and that is very hard to troubleshoot. But once you've done that process of elimination, the best thing I can do as a bike shop is have another bike just like yours. And I will literally take my brand new floor model and check the motor. Okay, we got a working motor. Next, check every component on the bike, and I break it down piece by piece, and we get it down to that wire down there. And very rarely have I ever had to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 5 years. But that is sometimes something to look for.
That is clever. You know, if you had 2 of the same bikes, you could swap the batteries, and you could, you know, do different things like that.
So easy.
It's been great looking at this bike with you. I appreciate it, Sam. And I noticed you've got the helmet hanging back there. That's always an important.
That's my personal helmet. I've always got it at the ready to do a test drive. You got to lead by example, Court, and you're a good advocate of safety and wearing that helmet. And here in California, it's actually the law. And when we sell an electric bike, we will give you a free helmet if you'll wear it.
Well, thank you so much again here at Myron's Extreme Machines, home of the Electric Bicycle Center. We're in Fullerton, California, so fairly close to LA. It's fun to come get this, you know, just great advice. Thank you for sharing your time and helping people out.
Get out there, ride. We'll see you on the trail.
Later.